there, and welcome to the Couch Next Door, where a happy hour meets a therapy session. I'm your host, Candace Frazier, a licensed professional counselor. Each week, I'm honored to have a friend come sit on my couch, and we'll dive into an area of mental health that is impacting their world. We'll definitely laugh, probably cry, and maybe go on a rant or two, because we are all humans, full of emotions. Come hang out with us. Amber and I just jumped all the way in at the start, so buckle up. I know y'all are going to love her. The passion she has for working with parents, families, and individuals in the neurodivergent community spills out of her. Okay, so just a little quick introduction. Amber Olson is a Board-Certified Behavior Analyst, a BCBA, who graduated from Texas Tech with a master's in special education with a concentration in applied behavior analysis, also known as ABA. She's currently attending Capella University to obtain her PhD in behavior analysis. She hopes to expand her knowledge on all the areas she can to use behavior analysis to help others, including individuals who are neurodivergent, individuals who have PTSD, and individuals battling substance abuse. Her company, Shine Behavior Consulting, supports parents of neurodiverse children and adults in prompting functional communication, emotion regulation, and building relationships with others. She is also focused on providing training to medical professionals and first responders on ways to effectively provide care for the neurodiverse individuals that they serve. Amber is here to talk about friendship in the community of those that are neurodiverse. Professionally, she has a front row seat to what this looks like in her clients and also the parents of those in the neurodivergent community. But one of her closest friends is also someone in this community, and she's able to share some stories with us today about that. Y'all are just going to love this conversation. She's here to really help all of us to have an evolved and healthy point of view on how to hear and see anyone that might fall into this community of people. So get ready. Here's my conversation with my new friend and fellow Swiftie, Amber Olson. Amber Olson, welcome to the Couch Next Door.
Yes, thank you so much. So happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. I'm so excited for this conversation. I think there's a lot of things that people are going to learn today. And so I'm excited. I know in our conversation when we first met, I learned so much in 30 minutes that we were chatting. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to have you on the show. And I think this is a perfect way to introduce you and to have you talk about your corner of the world. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us what we need to know about Amber.
Awesome. Yeah. So I am Amber. I received, just to give some educational background, I received my bachelor's in psych in Maryland. And then I came to Texas, and you can't really do a lot with your psych degree undergrad if you don't have any research. So I kind of just hopped into the ABA world kind of by accident. And then
tell us what ABA is. Some people may not know what that is.
Yes. So ABA it's applied behavior analysis, and it's really the science to just study behavior in general, but it's kind of people pair it more often with autism because that's the main treatment that doctors will send their patients to. And so just kind of to help children and adults with their regulation skills, their building relationships with others, and communication as well. So I kind of didn't really know anything about ABA or anything like that. So I hopped into that and fell in love. And so I ended up doing my master's in special education. I thought I was going to go a completely different route in the medical field.
Okay.
And now I'm pursuing my doctorate. And just really kept falling in love. And I thought I just hated school, but I guess when you find something you love, you push through it. So,
you just want to keep learning. I know. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So I basically stayed at the same company. They raised me ABA wise. And there's also different viewpoints on ABA. The old ABA, some people, which rightfully so, they didn't always do things the best. And so, but I was brought up in a way where we did things more naturalistic, strength-based. It was a really wonderful approach. And so that was my viewpoint of it. And then I did that, and I kind of jumped through. I was an RBT, which is kind of the bottom level where you are implementing the different goals. And then I got my master's degree and became a BCBA, and it stands for Board-Certified Behavior Analyst. And that's kind of just the person who basically is making the programs, making the goals, decide progress when working with the parents to decide where they would like their child to work on. If they want to work on. So that was my experience. And then I kind of wanted to jump into a different area. So I went to a company who worked solely with adults. So 20 to 60, 70-year-olds just had different abilities. Most of the time it was, they were autistic. And so I loved seeing that. But then one area I just kept commonly hearing is parents were so excited that I was working with them and helping them identify where they wanted to go. But they noted in not at the place I was at, but at their previous places, they just weren't supported or guided in any way. And they really weren't collaborated with. And so that brought up my frustration. I just felt that if you're working with a child or adult for 8, 10, 20, potentially sometimes 40 hours a week, and then they go home, the parent doesn't know what to do. That can be extremely frustrating,
right?
Taxing. And so I just wanted to really provide a space for that. And then I kind of work with an adult on the side just to kind of be his best friend and hang out with him. And I've learned so much from his mom, just the struggles of being a parent of an adult who has autism. And so I learned all about this long process of a waiver system in Texas and just the waiting process that parents have to wait through. And just, they're really just a lot of times feeling very isolated and alone. So I wanted to create this company. So I started a company called Shine Behavior Consulting and provide support to parents of both children and adults. And that's another part that I'm passionate about because a lot of parents find that once their child turns 8, 10, 12, they kind of they're told like, hi, sorry, this is our age cap. But hopefully you can find someone else that will work with you.
So as kids get older, it's harder for the parents to find the support. And is it also harder for them to find support for their kids?
Right. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's, so in those ABA clinics, some ABA clinics, they just, especially there's some preschools where again, it's a typical preschool. So then they turn 5 and then they go somewhere else. And then, so they jump to another clinic. And then usually sometimes those clinics can age cap around, like I said, 10, 12, sometimes 8. And so then when the child has their 8th birthday, they don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
Luckily, the clinic I started at, we didn't have an age cap. So I loved that model. And so that's where I just was also kind of blinded by everything else. So I thought every clinic was like that and every clinic. So just when I heard about how when parents don't really have anywhere to go, again, I kind of just want to provide a space where they can come and we can talk about things that they're wanting to work on. And so I kind of viewed Shine as just this little bridge. So I can kind of help them where then while they may be on a wait list for another clinic that will, but they don't have an age cap, or maybe parents aren't so sure about ABA because they heard about the old ABA, how I call it. So they can come to me and then we can kind of talk through things and I can show them just some different strategies and approaches and then going as they agree with things, working that way. And then, just kind of bridging that gap to make sure family.
You really filled in a hole. You totally filled in a hole.
Yes. Yeah. Trying to. Yes. Yeah. And my favorite part about my company too is I'm going to be launching a program soon where I work with like first responders, EMTs, firefighters. I was an EMT for 4 years in Maryland and just didn't receive a whole lot of training. And then I realized I was in the ABA field that just dentists' offices didn't really know how to approach neurodiverse individuals. So I just want to make sure I can provide training to really any medical professional so that they also feel confident and they can help any patient that walks through their door. So.
Right. Because sometimes it's not that they don't want to, they just don't know how to, and they feel overwhelmed. And so, you only have, like, if it's just a regular dental checkup, 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And so, and if they don't know how to serve their patient well, they can miss the mark, not because they want to, but because they don't know what else to do.
Exactly. And I love that you touched on that because when I first started in the field, I was filled honestly with a lot of anger because I felt so frustrated for my families I was working with and the clients. And one of my very first clients I ever worked with, he had a neurotypical twin sister and they went for a dental checkup and she was in and out right away. And we did all of this preparation for him, like my client, and we did all of these social stories, we call them, and reviewed things at the dentist's office. And then they kind of came in and they just approached him as if we didn't do any of that training. And so they kind of like had their hands on his back and there was a bunch of them coming right up. And at first I was so mad, and we tried to do all these things, and he ended up leaving, and he didn't even get his
Sure.
claim.
Yeah.
And so that was frustrating. And so I had so much anger, and I was just so frustrated that he wasn't getting the right care. And he was like 8, and he hadn't had very many proper dental cleanings, and just thinking of the longevity of that.
Yeah.
And so then I really tried to start, after talking with family and friends, turning that frustration, anger into something where I can do something about it. And then also, it took time and maturity, truthfully, to realize that it's not that they didn't want to. And what you just said, they just didn't know how. And when you don't know how, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. So you
Absolutely.
don't even know that situation.
Right.
So my hope with Shine is to just kind of provide that training and making it very individualized to them and their approach. And again, whatever kind of medical practice they have. And just sure that they feel supported, knowledgeable, and confident with every patient that they have that comes through the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. So they can serve everybody well.
Exactly.
Because you can't serve everybody the same.
Right.
Doesn't matter. Neurodiverse, neurotypical, nobody's the same. But it's like almost, I mean, even speaking to that, like just being flexible with who's in front of you. Exactly. And that's something you can speak to specifically within the neurodiverse community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's so cool. Okay. Yeah. Well, and we're probably going to jump into this a little bit, but something that, because you said, and you mentioned this in our other conversation when we first met, was like the old ABA and maybe like the newer ABA. And a way that you described that to me is maybe the old ABA was, okay, we've got to get this person to fit in this box, like this, the societal norm box. And so speak to what the, maybe like, I guess the new ABA sort of ideas are around that. Cause I think that that was so encouraging to me, and it sort of blew my mind. I was like, oh, good. Okay. I like this way better.
Yes.
Way better.
Awesome. And I'm glad you described it. It made sense too. So there's basically this term neurodiverse and neurodivergent, and like neurodiverse affirming and all of these different terms. Those terms basically just encapsulate it's all of your differences do not make you they're not a deficit. They just make you, they're just different. And so, and different doesn't mean wrong. Different can be really cool, and you just have a different perspective of things. And so the new way of ABA is kind of building on your different strengths. And so if you have a really great attention to detail, we build on that. And so, and then we find interests that might be, or games or different activities that can be really fun for you because you have attention to detail. So going back to the old ABA was kind of fitting in this box. So we were really forcing eye contact, which that's not so much a thing anymore. We're not like trying to really make sure that you're looking at everyone when you're talking, because not everyone looks, I don't always look at people.
Yeah, me neither. No.
Yeah.
Oh, and in therapy, what's so interesting, I have this plant. I don't have it here because it's usually on this table. And I've moved that plant at all the offices that I've been at. And I put it like in a central part because people will talk to the plant like that. Instead of having to look at me, it's a lot easier for them to speak about hard things.
That's
and it's
really
just
cool.
It just naturally became the plant that they talk to.
No,
but so eye contact is not a thing anymore. Like we don't have to have eye contact. Okay, continue.
No, and that was such a great point, and that goes right with it. Because again, when things are hard or if you're nervous, you don't always make and so just different things like that. And then also a lot of times we did things in like a discrete way, like discrete trial training is what we call it. And so basically we would sit at a table with a little kid. I always call them little babies because I mostly during my time I've worked with just 12 and up. So if they're under 5, I just call them
they're little babies.
So you just have these little kids, like these 5, 6, 7-year-olds just sitting at a table. And I don't like sitting at a table for more than 30 minutes. I'll start to get fidgety.
Sure.
And so sitting at a table, they don't have anything to play in their hands, and just kind of holding up like just this and like, what is this? And they say a pencil, and it's like, no. And then it's like, they have them do all these things. And then like, what is this? They say a stapler, versus something where it's like making it fun. If this is just my desk, so I don't have anything fun, but just like saying that this is like a car and you're working on it, you're like labeling that it's a car, labeling the color, and you guys are racing it all around, and it's going up in the sky, and it's like, oh my gosh, what is that up in the sky? And they're like, a car. And you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, it is a car, versus just holding it in your hand and saying like, what is this? So that's kind of the difference, showing how we're trying to just make it more natural based, play based, and working on just areas like that. And again, so if they love cars and you're working with colors, then instead of holding just regular things up and saying what colors it is, have a yellow car and have them talk about that. So just working on things to make it more fun because they're kids. And my favorite quote that I learned from my past job is, if you're not having fun, they're not having fun. And I thought about that a lot because when I first started, in my grad program, sometimes like they talked about some of the like first approaches and first ways to do things. So sometimes I was a little more rigid and I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to make, identifying amounts of things like numbers fun. Like, I want to make that fun. So it just kind of, it took me a while, but then I had wonderful supervisors who just like brought out that creativity in me. They're like, look, again, like have them count, if just relating it back to cars again, like all the cars rolling around on the racetrack and things like that. So that's, again, a huge quote that I think a lot of practitioners keep in mind while they're engaging with people and adults too, because another important part is helping adults feel seen and heard and not talk to like a baby too, because that was something that truthfully too was hard for me. When I would jump from session to session, I would have like a 6-year-old and then I would go to an in-home with a 13-year-old. Like sometimes it was, nice, that was a car. And then my supervisor would be like, whoa, like come on. And so sometimes it's hard to make that brain switch, but I had supervisors that just kind of helped just show that everyone is at their own individual. And so that's also just helped me in my regular life, treating everyone as just their own and not having these expectations as I go through different interactions with people day to day. Just they're their own person and like their own things. And so, well,
and to that point, you know, like if you're trying to keep somebody in this societal norm box and they really love cars, right? Like they can get focused on cars, you might try to get out of that, right? Like, well, we don't want to talk about cars all the time. But if that's going to, I mean, like to your point, if that's going to help them grow, why not use that? Because that's going to help them learn their colors, help them learn their numbers, help them be able to verbalize certain things with creative play because they do love cars. Why not use that? Yeah.
And then going on that too, like a lot of times we would, or like the old ABA would kind of be to teach different clients or different kids or adults to not talk about the preferred topic as much. And which again, so there's a point, like if you were out to breakfast with a friend and they just talked about their favorite TV show for the entire hour and a half, again, that could be somewhat like the listening person, you know, sit during that lunch like longer than they had scheduled, or maybe they would take a little bit longer to reschedule a hangout because they're like, they only talked about this, but kind of showing different ways of how you can still incorporate your interest through that. And also keeping in mind, like I love Taylor Swift. And so I'll talk about her.
Girl. Well, how did we not know this? We need to talk about that too. Okay, keep going.
No, but so that's what I said. Maybe we'll just talk about Taylor Swift. And
I would be okay with that.
Exactly. But so I will incorporate her frequently throughout my conversation and like finding ways though for me to kind of sprinkle that in while also asking my conversation partner like their other interests or like like what are some other concerts you've been to. So kind of showing ways that you can still stay on your topic, stay talking about the thing that you want to talk about, but branching out to how like asking conversations with or asking questions for the other person to build on that conversation, but not telling them only talk about this for 3 minutes and then
and then move on.
Yeah.
Well, because that's not authentic to them. You know, I mean, it sure, maybe they shouldn't talk about it for an hour and a half, but to your point, like teach them skills to help them talk about the thing that they really want to talk about. And how can we stem from that into other conversation points? Yeah. Instead of you have 3 minutes and then move on.
Right. Yeah. And that's because, again, that's not what you would typically do in a conversation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Now we have to talk about Taylor Swift for just a minute.
Yes. I love it.
Okay. So I'm late to the Taylor Swift party, but my 3 best friends from high school love her, have been obsessed with her for a very long time. So I went to my first Taylor Swift concert, the Eras Tour.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
That was my very first experience, which was mind blowing, like changed my life. I tell people that all the time. That changed my life.
Yes.
So so what's your favorite Taylor Swift album?
That's so hard. And I ask, like, because whenever I find out that one of the individuals I'm working with, that they like Taylor Swift, it's really hard for me to stay on topic or like work on other things, because I'm just like, let's talk about it. And so sometimes I'll ask them that. Truthfully, it depends on the season. It depends on my mood.
Yeah.
But right now, I am really into her most recent one, which that one kind of took me slower to get into, but that one I'll frequently listen to. And then I like Taylor Swift from middle school. Like, she was my jam. And then I kind of fell off a little bit. And then kind of a like sad touchy point. But like when I was an EMT, one of my like biggest mentors, he ended up like tragically passing, but he loved Taylor Swift. Like, we would be in the back of the medic, like after all, we would be going to get like ice cream from the gas, like it's called Wawa, but the gas station, and he would just blare the 1989 album. So 1989 album always has like a really soft spot in my heart. And so I kind of like, I stopped listening to her completely for like 2 years because it just brought up like,
that was too hard.
But then it was a complete shift, and then I felt like closer, and it made me happier when I listened. So she has like a special story for me. And so that's why I just like, I love her. And so 1989,
that's a good one.
My favorite, just because of all the with it. But that's so hard. I love Midnights, and then the Folklore and Evermore during COVID. I wasn't into those at all, but that was kind of a slow. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I love these. And then after her movie came out, so I never got tickets. I tried so many different times. So I'm so happy that you got to go. That's so awesome. So like, I watched the movie in the movie theaters, and then I watched it when it came out. I forget if it came out on Disney Plus, which one it came out on first, but when it came out on Disney Plus and then they released 2 extra songs, I watched all of those. And so each time I watched those, I fell more in love with Folklore and Evermore. But yeah, so that's such a hard question. But like I said, it depends on the mood. And when it's kind of been rainy here in like Austin, and so I've just been listening to Torture Poets Farm because it gets me just like
real moody. And that is a true like Swiftie answer. I don't know, it's too hard. It's too hard to answer that question. Depends on my mood. But do you have a favorite one? I love 1989. I mean, and I was late to the party, so I really like. I started really listening to her albums in COVID. So Folklore. So I feel like very connected to Folklore because I feel like that was my very first album release that was on my radar that I listened to. But I do love 1989. I just love the vibe of it. That's probably, and we're all waiting for Reputation to come out because that's also, I know. What is she doing to us? It's torture.
It's actually torture. And there's constantly, and then following all those accounts that have predicted ones in the past, and then I'm like, okay, it's definitely coming out on this day because of this and this, and then it doesn't, and I'm just like, I know, and we're all crushed. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Rough. I know. It's funny because I am late to the party, so like my husband's like, what is this? I'm like, look, I'm in now. Like, I'm all in. Well, my favorite part is, so my boyfriend, he has Spotify. And so when they did the Spotify rap, his most listened to artist is Taylor Swift. Every time, because we go on so many, like, we'll do little road trips and stuff. And so every time we do that, like, I just can't help myself. And he's so kind. Like, and he's whatever. He jams out. And his favorite song is Cruel Summer. And he always goes, Cruel Summer. And so he doesn't love her, but he loves her because I love her. But of it was so funny. Yes. On the Spotify Wrapped thing, he got the like personal message from her, and she's like, "Thank you so much for being like, what?" And so it cracked. Because he texted me one day. He's like, "I was planning to show you," and I don't have Spotify. I'm just so devoted to Apple and Apple Music. So when he told me that, I was like, okay, like, and I thought he was gonna, I don't know, surprise me with something way different. And then he came up, he didn't say anything. He just showed me his phone, and we like were crying, laughing so hard. But he's a top fan of Taylor Swift. You ruined his Spotify. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. We could talk about this all day. So.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So I want to hear your rant then. I mean, we kind of ranted about Taylor Swift, but what is your actual rant that you came to today?
Yeah. So I think, I kind of went on like a few different little ones as we were talking before, but my biggest one is I just wish more people would give autistic, neurodiverse individuals just more of a chance and more to just sit and listen and hear just about them and take the time, because I think a lot of times when individuals communicate differently, people just don't really want to take the time to communicate at all. And so kind of going into what we were talking about before, my very best friend in the whole world, He's autistic and he's 24. And I met him 3 years ago through care.com. His parents were just looking for someone, and then my work schedule kind of shifted around. So I had a huge chunk in my Tuesdays, and then I saw him on the weekends. And it was such a fast growth of friendship. I have never felt so seen and heard by anyone. And so they kind of hired me, and I hate saying that because I don't even think of him as like work. We just get to hang out. And so, but they brought me in to kind of just help him get out of the house and go walk around the mall, get some exercise, walk around the park, and go out to eat together and just go do all the fun things. And so I got to just get to be his best friend for work. And so, like I said, it just developed so quickly, and he can understand everything I'm thinking. And and also to give background on him, he's non-vocal, and he uses it's called an AAC device. And so AAC devices, I can't think of all of it's like it's a communication device that people have either on an iPad or a phone. So he does this on his phone, and so he kind of communicates that way. But he was kind of late to being introduced to speech therapy, and so he doesn't always use that as much. So he uses, they call it like lazy signs. So like if you say blue, like your hand should be like this, and you go like this, and he just kind of goes like that. You know. And so his favorite, so from when he was younger, he just always liked pointing out babies and red shirts, blue shirts, and ponytails. He loves talking about ponytails. And so he has all these things. And so like I say that because we can communicate so much all the time, and like laugh so hard. And like he loves Taylor Swift, I assume, because every time I don't know if he loves I don't know if he loves Taylor Swift or if he just loves when I jam out to her, because like he laughs so hard when the music, and then especially if there's any type of like guitar, and I just like I'm like jamming out and I do this, or like if I play the drums, like he laughs so hard. And so I think he knows basically all the Taylor Swift songs. And then especially when Portrait Poets Department came out, like he knew all those songs. Because we drive. He loves driving around. He loves seeing water fountains. That's his favorite thing. So we'll point all those out. But he can just tell when I turn on a Taylor Swift like album. He either knows like I need to listen to it because like I just have a lot on my mind, and it's like he just knows every single time. So one of my favorite things there's two things. I'll save my favorite for the second one, but the one is I've had 2 close friends pass since I've been hanging out with him. And both of those times I didn't want to not see him. Like the one was the day I found out. And so I went to go see him, and he can just immediately tell. And I've always taken pride in being able to hide whatever's going on.
Sure.
And like when you go into sessions with different kids and families, like you have to like you're there for them and you need to care about them. And so I've always taken a lot, and so sometimes even closest ones around me can't, like they'll never know like if I'm really sad or something, because I'm pretty good at, but he can see right through all of that so quickly. I think I don't know if it's my tone of voice or anything, but I do all of our same things when I greet him, and and like all of our all the fun things we talk about, but he can just tell. And so what we'll do when we're driving is, since he's 24, it's not, and just his parents and different therapies, it's not totally appropriate for him to like hug me all the time. What we'll do when he's driving is he'll like put his head on my shoulder, or like not even on my shoulder. He like holds it like a little farther away, but it's like, and that means so many different things, so many different times, but he'll do that a lot if we haven't seen each other in a while. And if he can, like, he really always does it only like if I'm going through something.
Wow. Yeah.
Which again, he's only been twice, but yeah. So he's my best. Like no one knows me
like him.
Yeah. My boyfriend can see through it pretty much most of the time, but he like, a lot of times when you're in a relationship, your partner may want to like fix things and help you fix them right away.
Absolutely. But
with my friend, like he can tell if I want to laugh, and he can tell if I want to jam. Sometimes he'll reach over to my radio and he'll crank the music up so loud. And like and he'll do that sometimes if we're going through a drive-through getting food and he's trying to mess with me. And like I'm trying to cranks it up. And then but he can tell exactly what I need every single day, every single moment of every day.
That's so cool.
Just my best friend. But so my favorite story, and he teaches me something different every day. And a lot of times mom will say like, oh, you've been with him like 3 or 4 times this week for like a long time. Like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, don't, like, this is for like selfishly, I need this. Like, I need to hang out. I love our connection. I love what I learned. And so he loves going to the YMCA, and there's these water slides there, and there's some on the outside which are a little smaller, but he can still go down them, and the lifeguards, like, they don't mind. And so he's taller. But there was this one time while they were having summer camp, while we were there, and again, all the lifeguards like know him, and so like they're totally fine with him kind of being around when all the summer camp kids were in there. And so he was waiting in line to go down the slide. And first of all, like, just kids are kids, they're excited, so they cut and feed him all the time. And he's always really patient. And there was one time where these kids were kind of like, so when he's happy, he like goes like, yee! And then like when he laughs, it's really loud. And then when he wants to communicate things to me, like if he sees a ponytail, he'll go po, like really loud. Or, if he sees a red shirt, he'll go like, ooh, like kind of loud. And so he was doing those things, and he was going like, and of course you're out at a pool, everyone has ponytails, and so he was going, oh, a lot. And so I think these kids just naturally noticed that he was communicating. But then they started like poking him, and they were like, why don't you talk? Why don't you talk? And then like I like kind of moved closer, and they looked at me and like, why doesn't he talk? And I was like, well, he does. He just talks a little differently from you, like you guys. He still talks to me. And they were like, well, say hi. And he kind of like, he was like, ah, and he like said it, but they like kind of just kept poking him. And then I just started to get frustrated. Like, and then they were like talking to each other, and they were saying, like he doesn't talk, like and they were saying some other things that I didn't totally love, like relating him to like movie characters. And I don't know. I just want stuff. And again, but they're kids. And so like I keep reminding myself of that, but I still felt sad. And I was like, and he is like, his receptive language, he knows everything that you're saying. If we were in a room and I said like, hey, before we leave, like grab your phone, let's get your backpack, and like grab your socks for me. And then like something random, like, and then I don't know, grab a different item. Like he would do all of those in the sequence. And a lot of people misinterpret that. Like if someone doesn't communicate in the typical way, then that means they don't understand when I communicate to them. And that's completely false. And so he could hear all of these things that these kids were saying, and saying like, why doesn't he talk? He doesn't talk. And
he's understanding everything that they are saying.
Exactly. And I don't think, and I'd like to not think that they were being malicious about it. They were just kids, and kids make observations, but didn't take away from, I was just like sad and frustrated that like I was trying to divert their attention to other things, and it still wasn't working. And then I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. And then in the line, he like kind of did that. And he does that when we're like, it's always in my car, but we were just standing there, and he did that. And then just to make me laugh, he'll do his laugh really loud. And so he was going like, like really loud. And he did it just because he knew it would make me laugh. And I think he could tell and see that I was like tensing up. And then, so in that moment, like I tell people that story all the time because I learned a million lessons from him.
Right.
Like, but the biggest one is he's like, look, I'm pumped. Like we're at basically Disney World for me.
Right.
Like this is my favorite. I'm jamming. You're here. Like we're having the best time. Like stop. Like don't worry about that. We're having fun. Like let me just go down the slide. You clap for me. We're pumped. And then let's do it 10 more times, and then 15 more times, and just have a great day. And so again, just really, he reminds me constantly to just take a different perspective and just really value what matters most in front of you. And again, I don't know. He's constantly showing me just choose happiness all the time.
Yeah.
It's so much more fun and so much easier. And he goes through challenges every single day. Like sometimes his parents don't always understand what he's communicating in the moment. And that's frustrating. That's really hard for your parent. And so every single day he's faced with multiple challenges that I've never experienced. And I've wouldn't know how that feels. And he's still the happiest person in the whole world. And that's what I find with most of my individuals that I work with, that they are the happiest people ever. And so a lot of people would think like, oh, it's like they just have such a hard time, and they do. But like, look at how they're like, they're so happy. They're trying to make you laugh. They're trying to show you their favorite car, their favorite Taylor Swift song. And so it's just, that's a huge lesson I've learned, is just choose happiness and choose to take just more positive perspectives of things. And
don't count them out. I mean, sure, like you said, it's not like their life is easy. They have limitations, but so many people sort of count them out as somebody you can actually connect with or have a relationship with or have a friendship with.
Exactly.
You're so short-sighted in that when you do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's so many positives to being like best friends and so close with someone who like a neurodiverse individual, because they have such a deep interest in like what you're saying and what you're talking about. And they have their own deep interests that they're so passionate about. And I've learned about so many things. Like a few years ago, one of my kids was so into Pokemon Go. And then I became so into it. And like, again, my boyfriend was making fun of me because we would go to the airport and then I would like make sure I hit all the Pokemon. And at first it started because I wanted to just impress him and show him like, I know all of the Pokemon names.
Right.
I know all of these things. But then it just actually became truly like, I was like, oh my gosh, I love Pokemon Go. And Pokemon Go got big in like 2014, I think 2015. And so, and then when I first started, it was like 2022. And so I just got into it super late and I loved it. And so showing you different interests that actually, I don't really play anymore, but because I don't have anyone to actively trade and do fun things with. But it's just taking the time to get to know just anyone. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to know directly like what their diagnosis is, but just if someone seems like, just if in your mind or in your eyes different, take the time to get to know them, because something I've learned from an early age, but especially throughout this field, is everyone in your life will have something to teach you, whether you like what the lesson is or not. And so I've learned so much from getting to know just all of these different families, these different like individuals. And so just taking the time, because they just, and also just my best friend, he's just the most authentic. And so if he doesn't like something, it's very clear. And you don't always get that with friends. Sometimes
absolutely.
They'll just smile and say like, it's okay. But if he doesn't like something, he'll just like say no, like real loud, or he'll like, or if you say like, hey, and like he really liked going to like walk at the mall for a while, and if I'm like, hey, do you want to go to the mall? He'll usually say, and he says yes by like using his shoulder. He'll usually say yes a little bit, but then I can kind of see, and I'm like, do you want to go? And he's like, no, and like it'll be very clear, and I'm like, okay, but and with him too, one more thing is his attention to detail. I started like a pick up trash kind of cleaning park thing at my previous company. And then I told his mom about it, and she was like, I think he would love that because of his attention to detail. And he's always pointing out like trash a lot. And so then I showed him one time, and then that is his jam. Like if it's not raining, we're picking up trash at his favorite, because it's cool for him because it's his favorite park. He loves, they have a pool there with water slides as well. And I think he loves seeing all the dogs and the people. And then he sees he's cleaning up the whole place, but he loves picking up trash. Like he'll always ask that on his phone. He loves we go to the car wash, pick up trash, and we usually do something else. Like different fun. But those are his.
Well, and because of his attention to detail, you found like this, what a great activity. Like so easy, but a way for him to use that personality trait in a really beautiful way. That's amazing.
Exactly. And it's another environment where because he just loves seeing different people and talking to people.
Yeah.
And so like if he thinks babies are just so, I think he thinks he doesn't like to get close to them, but he'll always go like, bah, bah, bah. He thinks a baby. And then if they're crying, he really doesn't like when they're crying. And he'll always go, oh, like, and he'll let me know. And then, but so it's just a great opportunity for him to do all of the things he loves. Yeah. And then just, like I said, get to see the place that he loves so clean and nice to know, I just did that. Like I just
that's amazing. Okay. I have to ask you this. I just heard about this podcast called the Telepathy Tapes. Have you heard of this?
Someone I connected with a few, like back in September, showed me, and I've only gotten through the first episode. This was very recent, and it's so interesting.
Yeah, I haven't started listening to it. I listened to another podcast, and then they were recommending it. So I was going to actually start it today because I needed a new podcast series to jump into. So yeah, but they said it's so fascinating.
The first episode really was mind-boggling. And yeah, it's very interesting. And they kind of ended the episode somewhat discouraging to me, just because she said, like, the person that kind of like the podcaster, like, well, how do we get this information out? Like, how do we do this? And the doctor that she was working with kind of said, like, well, it's hard to show this because everything needs to be like evidence-based. And so it's somewhat discouraging at the end, but so I'm so curious to see where it keeps leading to.
Yeah.
All of the families she's going to get to meet and see.
Yes. I mean, but it talks a lot about what you're even saying, how people that are nonverbal almost can, like, they say basically read minds, but I think like what you're saying, they can just feel a shift in like the emotional environment and they know what's going on. And I haven't listened to it yet, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I understand the lines of the whole premise of the show.
Yeah. What's on. And so what's on the podcast is they kind of talk about, just there's like the mom will have a special connection with the child and the child will actually be able to read her mind. It's very interesting, but yeah, to go back into relating it to my best friend is, I think he can just, his sense of just empathy and identifying when, like you kind of said, the emotional and like energy shift is just at 1,000,000%. He can feel it instantly. And what I love about him is he wants to fix it. Like a lot of times, if I notice someone around me close to me is like sad, I kind of feel sad with them. And like, I'm very, I don't know, I feel other people's emotions, but I don't, but he's always just right away. He's like, he can tell, like, does she need to crank up the music? Do I need to just laugh really hard and then get her laughing? Or do I need to ask to go, I don't know, to Chick-fil-A because I know that's a place for us to go or whatever. So, that's I highly recommend that just based off the first episode.
Okay. Yeah. I'll include that in the show notes because it intrigued me. So I wondered if you had listened to it. Okay, cool. Okay. Well, let's jump in. I mean, I feel like we've kind of already started the conversation, but I know we have a lot of different places we can go. So, and the other thing that I even mentioned before we jumped in, I do think it's so interesting because I didn't know that until today, that your best friend is in this community of neurodivergent people. And so for you to work with people like this and see the effects of what relationship, friendship, connection can look like within this community, but also you having this personal connection of your friend and what that friendship has looked like, how it's sort of sprouted into what it is today. I think that's a really cool part that we get to talk about as we talk about neurodiversity and friendship. So I'm excited. I'm excited to hear all the things. So first, define neurodiversity for all of us in case people maybe don't necessarily know what that means or who falls under that category. Give us sort of just like a Cliff's Notes version of what that term means.
Right. And one note about that too is it was kind of a newer term to me within the last 2.5 to 3 years, which is somewhat unfortunate because when I was looking into it, when I first heard about it, it was first the idea of it was starting to be brought up in the 1990s. And so I'm excited that you asked about that and kind of what it means, just to hopefully expand everyone's knowledge on it. But it's just the idea that everyone's brain works differently. And it's not, again, like I said before, it's not wrong. It's just different. So the umbrella, when someone kind of says a neurodiverse individual, they're kind of usually talking about someone who's autistic, has ADHD, dyslexia, or maybe not quite yet a diagnosis, but there's just signs that their brain just kind of, or their thought process just is a little different. But like the emphasis that it's not wrong, it's just, and so and then the neurodivergent affirming approach is just kind of building off of that. And it's like, we acknowledge that they're different, but let's not focus on maybe what's harder for them, but focus on their strengths. So again, friend, like his attention to detail. And so kind of focusing on that. And then, so if you're going to a clinic for your child and you want to kind of see what their approach is, I would highly recommend parents to ask about that and ask if they have a strengths-based approach, and then kind of ask, okay, can you tell me how you guys have a strengths-based approach? Because anyone can kind of like say it, but again, it should be building off of what they are really strong at and what they really like, and finding how to just continue to expand their skill set.
Right. Not redirecting them to fit into societal societal norms, whatever that is, because I don't even really know what that is, what that means. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So, I mean, so it is a broad umbrella of people that can fit under this. I mean, would you say, based on what your knowledge is and who you work with, I mean, like you said, ADHD, somebody that might be has dyslexia, autism, those are people that fall under this description of neurodiversity. How does that impact friendships? How does that impact connections? How have you observed that, whether in your personal life, professional life? What does that look like? How does that how does that impact friendships?
Yeah, and that's such a good question too. It can be kind of hard for neurodiverse individuals to identify if maybe someone's bored or not wanting to talk about something. So that can be a hard shift for them. And it can be hard when I've had some individuals or clients like come home and tell their parents or me and say like, I don't know why this person won't text me back. And then we kind of look. And so sometimes identifying those social cues too. So sometimes waiting can be hard, waiting for a response. And so like if they're texting, they may say like, I got this new Taylor Swift shirt. And then like 5 minutes goes by and it's like, hey, do you want to see my new Taylor Swift shirt? And then 5 minutes goes by and it's like, okay, I'll just send you a picture of my Taylor Swift shirt. So kind of identifying those times of maybe when to pause and wait for the other person wants to say. Also, sometimes their sensory sensitivities can impact it. So like if two parents are kind of organizing an event for them to go and like hang out and see how they bond and just spend time. Like if they were to go to a bowling alley, sometimes that's great. And sometimes like loud noises are awesome. Like again, just referencing my friend, he loves, they startle him, but he always likes to say like, oh, and like we have to do it in a specific sequence. And so he's okay with them, but if they happen pretty repetitively over time, he doesn't always do that. But he does love the bowling alley. But for some individuals, like all of those, everything can. And not for everyone's
sure.
But the lights on the TV screen showing the score, that can be very intense. The sound of everyone talking along with maybe their parent trying to talk to them, that can be intense to kind of decipher through. And so when you're in that environment and trying to build a connection with someone else, that can be really challenging because you can't really focus very easily on what they're saying because all of those things. And then same thing if you have like two people meeting at a coffee shop just to kind of, they met each other on like an online group and they want to see each other. If it's a busy coffee shop and everyone's really paying attention to what someone's saying, that can be hard because again, you're hearing the sounds of the espresso machine working and then people taking orders. And then, so that can be distracting, and then you would miss out on what your conversation partner is saying. So then that person might think like, well, they're not listening so keeping in mind that there are so many potential distractions around. And so it may not be that. So like if you are someone like trying out a friendship with someone who is neurodivergent, understanding that it may not be like they're not listening to you, or if again, they're not making eye contact. A lot of times we'll see that as a sign of listening or even sometimes respect. And that's not, it's not like they're trying to disrespect you or not listen to you, or if they're kind of looking around or pointing out at something while you're talking. It's just sometimes that like impulse control and they just really want to show you that really fast. That can be challenging too. So kind of the sensory can be a huge, a big one to keep in mind. The sensory kind of, and then those communication and just understanding those different kind of like nuanced things of someone's bored and not really wanting to listen and they're kind of looking away, or if they're trying to talk about something different and then you continue talking about Taylor Swift and like, let's talk about like Valentine's Day's coming up. Like, Taylor Swift's also on Valentine's Day. Maybe we should try something. So,
right.
So, so especially like if you're a parent working to support your child going through one of those pain or something, kind of letting them know like, hey, last time when we hung out with Jimmy, he was talking a lot about dinosaurs and you love dinosaurs. So that could be something that you guys could talk about, or kind of just supporting them in that way too, kind of helping them to identify what conversation topics could be good. And kind of helping them to see different, or if you're hanging out with them and you hear that maybe your child is like, or maybe like the conversation partner also said that they love to play basketball, and then you know that your child loves basketball, you could say like, oh, well, they said that they love basketball. Maybe tell them about how we did Special Olympics last year or something like that. So kind of helping facilitate that conversation while keeping both interests in mind. So
making connections.
Yes. So that kind of loops back into new and old ABA, which we've already kind of touched on, but not saying like, hey, if they start talking about the Super Bowl coming up, like make sure you talk about it because they're really interested in it.
Right. That's important to them. Yeah.
Exactly. So saying instead like, hey, if they talk about the Super Bowl, you could just say like, oh, that's cool. Like, and then you love New Orleans. So how about you could just start talking about New Orleans and you can say how we went on vacation. So just finding different ways where they still get to talk about what they love and not pulling away from those things that they're interested in.
If so, I mean, I think like what you're touching on is if it's a younger kid with parents that maybe are a little bit more involved in the social interactions of their kid. What if it's maybe an older kid or more of an adult person? If you're, befriending somebody in this community and maybe like you said, notice some of these things. Right. What's something that you could say to somebody that maybe is more neurotypical, but is befriending somebody in this community? How could we be sensitive to that, be aware of some of those cues that maybe there's too much noise or they want to talk about something? I don't know. What would be some advice for us in that, on that side of things?
Yeah, that's a great question. My biggest piece of advice is like have patience both with the person that you're like talking with and building a relationship with, but also having patience with yourself and not to because it's taken me time while I'm hanging out with my friend to kind of understand like, okay, that situation probably was pretty loud and overwhelming. And there's been some times where we've gone to like different events, like in Georgetown or just around an awesome music festival, but there are some people talking, there's lots of music playing. And so understanding too that just trying to take into account their perspective of things. And so maybe they really liked a loud environment one time or like kind of a busy environment one day, and maybe the next time they didn't, which again, I'm the same way. Sometimes I like to work in a loud coffee shop and sometimes I'm over into quiet. So just taking into account that both things change and their perspective can change, and just seeing it from their point of view and understanding those sensitivities that could be taking place, and understanding again, identifying those different social cues can be really hard for them, and communication. And so sometimes being direct can be the best way because a lot of times seeing things in like black and white is typically how that perspective, like the gray area, it's hard to identify. And so kind of letting them know like, oh yeah, like if you really like talking about a topic, or if you don't really like talking about a topic, you can just say like, oh hey, I don't really like that kind of music, but I do like this. So just kind of letting them know directly, because if you never say that, they may not pick up on the cues of you looking away or trying to divert the conversation. So just saying like, oh hey, I don't really like it. You don't have to say like, stop talking about that. Just letting them know directly. That's not really something I like to talk about, but I do like this.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
Connecting your interests with them and just making them feel like seen and heard. That's this thing. And a lot of times when I'm friends or like I'm working with someone who doesn't have a whole lot of like communication, like vocal communication, repeating back some things that they're kind of repeating so that they know that they're being heard. And so I every once in a while I'll still like care for like an 8 or 10 or 13-year-old who is autistic. And so some of the kids I'll hang out with, their communication is kind of limited, but they will repeat if they really like Batman, they'll say like, Batman flies, fly. You see Batman fly. And so and then just kind of building off of that. And so I'll say like, yeah, Batman flies and he like helps out Gotham City and he like just helps keep the city safe. So building off of that and letting them know that you hear them versus just saying, yeah, we talked about that. Like, let's move on. Again, reflecting that was old ABA. It was like, we already talked about Batman flies. Like, let's talk about this, because maybe they're just, as they're saying that, trying to build up their communication. So maybe they're trying to say like, I want to watch Batman, or I want to do a Batman coloring page, but they're just saying that they're trying to just develop that language. So again, if you're trying to build a relationship with someone who is neurodiverse, and they are maybe repeating something, maybe that is bothering them. So not trying to like redirect away, because that can be frustrating in any situation. If, I just went through a breakup or something and I'm talking about it a lot, and then someone's trying to just redirect it. It's like, well, this means something to me and I really want to talk through it. So sometimes repeating back what you hear can help them to identify what they're saying, like what it sounds like and what the other person is hearing. So again, just validating.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what, if it's, it's just two people and somebody is repeating something because that's something they either is bothering them, they want to talk about, they're interested in it. To your point, it doesn't mean, well, let's move on. That's important to them. So validating that that's important to them. And it doesn't mean, well, now we're just gonna have to talk about that for an hour and a half, but just like, I hear you, and, picking up on those cues. And to your point, like saying directly, hey, you want to watch Batman? Like, let's do that. That sounds like a great idea. I think that's something that is important for people to hear, is just be direct, validate. Just because somebody is neurodiverse does not mean we don't operate in the same way with that we would anybody else. I don't know. That's basically what I'm hearing you say.
Yes. Yeah. And no, that's right. And so like, if there's a teenager listening to this, or someone in school, or a parent of a child in school, encouraging them to, because a lot of times, the school system is trying to integrate just different classrooms together, but encouraging them, like if you see that someone communicates differently, how about you go up and talk to them? And then maybe they communicate in sign language, so you can learn some signs and have a conversation with them. And just kind of, again, back to a parent perspective too, and actually both, but just, again, different isn't bad. And different really means really cool. And you can really learn something from that. And so encouraging, if you're a parent, your child to really engage and communicate with maybe like kids they see in their school that they do talk to others differently, or maybe they show that they're excited differently, and they kind of like, but again, that doesn't mean that they don't know what you're saying, or that they don't have a relationship. Like if you see them by themselves, and then maybe you'll see them every once in a while, like kind of move away from people, but maybe that doesn't mean they don't want you to sit next to them. Maybe that just means they want you to sit a little further away.
And just ask. And just ask. They understand, like they'll understand, and they'll be able to answer you. If they, Well, so noticing those cues can be. We need to do that for all friendships, but specifically, like what you're saying is, there's going to be cues that they may not necessarily verbalize that this is what that means, but we can understand what that means, or we can ask if we aren't totally sure.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that you said, just ask. It's like they can understand, and they'll let you know if they want you to or not. And yeah, that's great.
Okay. So you mentioned something like, for parents, loved ones, what they need to understand about neurodiversity impacting friendships, like really knowing that there are some limitations as far as, their cues and maybe outside stimulation, all of those things. But now I'm also wondering, as we're talking, because you work with families, because you work with parents closely, how does that impact parents? Like if I imagine if they have a kiddo that is neurodiverse, does that make it hard for parents to find friends for themselves, or does that end up being kind of isolating sometimes?
So I really love that you touched on this. And so I'm going to kind of divert a little bit, but I was just having this conversation with a group of mental health therapists, actually. And a perspective that was brought to me by my best friend's mom is, as a parent of someone who is neurodiverse, and I can really mostly only speak for just autistic kids, but there is truly a period of grief that you go through when you get that diagnosis, as your child goes through stages of life. Like it's a constant, I don't want to say constant, but you'll periodically experience those feelings of grief, as you'll see your best friends' kids going and having these birthday parties with all of these friends, and they're just playing with them and doing all of these things that maybe you're noticing like your child hasn't really been doing. And then they go on to high school, and then they're going into college. And maybe your child, that's not exactly where they're at that point. And so maybe they're going to college. And so that's a grieving process.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to marriage and having grandchildren, that's something that I've heard from quite a few parents. That's extremely hard. Like they'll never be able to build that romantic relationship with people. And so viewing it in that way can be extremely challenging. So another note too, if you're maybe a friend of a parent of an autistic child or just kind of taking that understanding that it's more than just like, it's really hard to be a parent of someone who like has autism or is neurodiverse. It's more than just like, oh, that must be hard. Like thinking of all of those processes that they're working through as well.
Yeah. It's not just the day-to-day that's hard. They're also thinking this isn't necessarily what I imagined my kid's future to look like and what mine would be alongside it. Yeah. Yeah.
And then avoiding saying like, no one should ever say like, well, it could be worse, because that just is not validating.
That's not validating.
But just like point to that too, is making sure you're validating that person, like saying like, that is so hard. And, or like, that must be so hard. And I can't even imagine. And just, again, saying, because I've heard from other parents too, like they'll hear from parents at their school or something, and they'll say like, oh, well, like my daughter's autistic, but she's going to college and she's having all of these things. Like that's not helpful in that situation. That's great. That's wonderful that your child is doing that. But in those situations, if they're sad and needing to lean on someone, just kind of touching on a different form of friendship too with that. But like if that, just providing them with the same thing, validation, understanding their perspective, understanding that you don't understand everything that they're having to go through on a daily basis and how isolated they feel. So yes, back to your point though, that it can be very isolating and you're kind of unsure of how to support those friendships that you're hoping that your child develops. And there's a lot of hard times too, because your child may come home a lot of times and they are vocalizing like, no one's talking to me, or I've been alone at the lunch table. And when I like flap my hands, people laugh at me. Or when I like move my fingers in front of my face to help me calm down, people laugh at me. And those challenges can be very significant. And so just what I would say as like, if you were a parent, is just continue to build your child up and showing them their strengths and saying like, okay, well, listen, you are like really, really good at drawing. So maybe you could find someone that you do want to be friends with. And you can say, hey, what's your favorite animal? And then maybe you could draw their favorite animal, and then they can see how awesome you are of a drawer.
Right.
So building them up. So bringing out their strengths and then showing them those strengths to build friendships. And so
that's good.
Maybe you have perfect pitch and you love playing the guitar, and maybe the most popular song right now is Taylor Swift's song.
Yeah, of course.
Because like you could play that song, and maybe you could like just post the video on like Instagram, or maybe you could like share that video with friends from school. And they could see, wow, like they play that Taylor Swift song perfectly, and just kind of, again, highlighting those strengths, and that's a lot easier said than done, because when you're going through just those day-to-day challenges and all of it, it can be really hard.
But that's something that it's something that a parent can do. And so I think that's good. I mean, you know what your kid likes, you know what their strength is, build on that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm just saying like, be positive, because that is
not. No, I don't hear that at all. No.
Yeah. But so just like I said, those strengths and identifying them and highlighting them and talking about them, even like with your partner at home, or maybe with their siblings, or just out and about, saying like, oh my gosh, like whenever Susie, like does her hair, she really focuses on making sure like each curl is perfect. It looks so good. Like I hope she can like curl her friend's hair. And so that's another skill. Like maybe you can friend's makeup or something. 'Cause if it is a specific interest, maybe your child is watching those makeup videos all day, every day, just focusing on every detail. So just really highlighting and celebrating those strengths.
Yeah, that's good. So I hear you speaking to two different people. One is, if you are a friend of a parent with a child that is neurodivergent, and basically what I hear you saying is just validate, give them space, let them grieve. Let them talk about the hard, let them, be sad about the things that they're missing out on. Don't try to redirect that. But I guess I'm wondering too, for parents that are in that position in the neurodivergent community, like they have kids in that community, is it, I mean, I think I know the answer, but I would assume it's really helpful for them to also be connected and have friends that are parents that are also going through that day to day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a few parent support groups around. Like if parents were to go on Facebook, some of those Facebook groups can be really hard. I'm in a few of them, and they just talk about a lot of the challenges, and it can be, sometimes it can be helpful to relate, but sometimes it can just be hard because then you start reflecting on other things.
Right. Right.
There are some Facebook groups, and then that is something that I've also been trying to form, but there's so many support groups out there. Sometimes it's hard to find one that is right for you though, but yeah, building that connection, having someone that can relate. Because then back to the point, if you are a parent of a neurodivergent child, like trying to relate to them when you don't really have a situation that can be related to that, I've heard from other parents, can be very frustrating. And so, yes, but finding that community of other parents. So my advice too would be, if maybe you are a parent of a child or a teen or adult where they do receive services, something that one of my supervisors did right when I was first starting is she kind of helped. She asked like 3 sets of parents, and she said like, hey, I have 2 other parents that have children or kids that kind of have the same interests as your child. Do you consent to me kind of sharing your information? So you kind of have to do a process. Sure. But then they were all able, and then coincidentally, they also went to Bowling Alley to meet, and then they built this friendship. And so they connected. And while they were connecting, the parents could really relate.
That's good.
Also, another great way to meet other parents is just going to all of the Special Olympics events. There's like a few in and around Austin where they have Special Olympics. They have just little basketball leagues or soccer leagues. And that's a place where, again, while your child's playing and playing, really get to build that community with other parents. So those are great ways to meet people that could be a little, because sometimes it could be awkward just all sitting in a support group talking with one another. Your kids playing and you guys are kind of focused on that, and then just chatting that way, that can be a little more comfortable. But yes, those communities are, from what I've seen, just so beneficial for families to.
Well, and it sounds like you can start maybe with one of these support groups, and that may just be a way to find somebody. Like it doesn't mean that you're going to be friends with everybody in that group, but maybe that's a good first step to try to find somebody that can relate. And I think, like you're saying too, if you're receiving services, ask the people like, hey, I need a friend that understands this. You got anybody in mind? And like, be open to just even asking. I think that's the thing. Like, and, I think I mentioned this, the reason I wanted to do this friendship series is friendship comes up in the therapy room so much, because I think sometimes we feel ashamed that we don't know how to make friends. And so then we don't ask for help. But this is, what you're saying is you as the professional want to help connect everybody in this community with somebody that's going to just help them to feel better and to feel more supported and validated. And so ask for that assistance, because 10 times out of 10, there's somebody else that also needs that. So somebody might be missing out if you don't ask for it,
Right. No, and I love that you said just ask, because that's been kind of like a loop of what I've just been learning throughout friends. And recently we've all just been talking about like, I'm so glad I asked to do this. Because
just be direct.
Exactly. Because the worst someone can say is no. And like that might seem a little bit, but then you move on.
You know.
Exactly.
Move on. So, don't sit and think about it and think, well, what if? Just ask.
Yes. And if you have someone working closely with your child, like a speech pathologist or a BCBA or ABA professional, they probably know a lot of different families. So they can really find someone that you match with. So
absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you're already engaged in those services, what a great resource to get connected with other families. Yeah. That's great. Okay. Well, and we kind of mentioned this, but I want to just make sure that we're covering like this idea of healthy friendships with somebody that's in the neurodiverse community. Like what would you say is a way to facilitate a healthy relationship with somebody that's neurodivergent?
And that's great. Are you asking too from a parent perspective, or?
I want to hear from the parent perspective and from maybe like an adult or teen or somebody that maybe is a little bit more independent in developing their own friendships.
Right. And that's such a great question, because I too, a lot of times I've noticed just with different autistic individuals, the want to please and to make other people happy so high. And so one of the biggest things that I have worked on with different individuals and their parents is just to kind of set that clear guideline and let them know, like, hey, if someone does something, because that's so big, if someone does something that makes you feel uncomfortable or that you don't agree with, it's 1000% okay to just get up and leave, or say, I don't want to do this anymore, or hey, like letting them know that made me feel uncomfortable. I mean, again, they don't have to cut everything off depending on what it was, but just saying like, hey, I don't like that. That made me feel uncomfortable. Because a lot of times that can just be hard to know when to use. And again, if you are really just wanting to make people happy, and maybe they haven't had a friend for a while, or like someone close to them, so they really want to make sure that this works. Really emphasizing the seriousness of if someone says something that is maybe really mean or hurtful, letting them know that you didn't like that. And going through it that way. And then if you are an adult who's neurodivergent, again, just kind of being aware of what your standards are and what makes you feel uncomfortable and what makes you feel okay. Making maybe a list just so you remember.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
You keep that in your mind, like as you're developing a friendship with someone, just writing down, like, I don't like when we talk about this, and I don't like if they ask me my thoughts on this. Like this is what I can say. So to kind of role play is so key, and to role play as closely to the situation as possible. So maybe if you are like neurodivergent, asking a parent or a sibling or something like, hey, can we like practice a scenario like this? Again, back to the parent side, if you are a parent, practicing that scenario. So if you have a sibling close to their age, kind of talking as if they were in that type of conversation. If they don't have a sibling or a sibling close to their age, they can practice that conversation. But just making clear, it's hard to say, but clear guidelines and a clear path for what they, especially just what they really don't want. So that they know when to stop something, how to stop it, and then where to go from there based on the severity of that. But I love that you touched on that, because that can be so serious. And especially something I've worked on too, just like with like clients that I've had, is if they were a girl and if at school, like a boy did something that they didn't like that's so serious. And that's something, or vice versa. I mean, anyone, like, someone, if you have a boy and someone did something they didn't like, but just really, really showing them like, hey, if someone ever does this, this is what you do, and giving those like very clear directions. And so, back to the adult, writing down like, okay, this is what I really don't like. This is not okay. This is what I do if that happens. Yeah,
that's good. Well, and I'm even thinking like what you mentioned, if you're somebody that hasn't had a friend for a really long time, or has had a hard time finding a good friend, it might be easy to compromise some of those things, some of those boundaries, to think, oh, well, but I want a friend, and this person is taking interest, so maybe I should just let it be. But I love the idea of like, you already know what is important to you. You already know what your boundaries are, and just not compromising that, or just saying it to that person and letting that be known too, but not compromising just because, oh, well, I finally have found somebody to connect with. That still doesn't mean compromising.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. The main reason I touched on that too is, and we're talking about friendships, but when it comes to relationships, it's basically following that same guideline. But that was something that, again, I said girl, because that's the one I can personally speak to, but I worked on with her on what to do during relationships, like romantic relationships,
right?
What you need to make sure you say, and how you can advocate for yourself.
That's good.
Don't like something. Just
yeah. Well, I mean, even thinking like, just the fact that you do that kind of service, and you teach that for people. I mean, I used to see a lot of teenagers in my practice, and that's something that I think everybody needs help with.
Absolutely.
Like knowing how to advocate for themselves.
Right. And again, even like if you're just trying to find a relationship, a romantic relationship, you're just settling for something because it's been a while since you've been in a relationship.
Right.
You need to still stick to your standards. Yeah. So like you said, it applies to everyone, just knowing what your standards are and what you like and don't like.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Is there anything else that you would say to the grownups that care about a child in the neurodiverse community as a source of encouragement with friendships that we didn't cover?
The biggest point I would say is just really focus on strengths.
Yeah.
And just really focus on kind of building them up and finding the flexibility in expressing their strengths or their interests. So again, maybe again, just relating it back to Taylor Swift, but maybe you want to talk about Taylor Swift, but maybe you want to make friendship bracelets. And so like that's still Taylor Swift and that's still something you like. And maybe they like making jewelry, so something like that. Or just, again, finding different, or maybe your friend really likes drawing. So you guys can draw, and maybe, or like if you're a boy and like you want to draw cars, you draw cars while your friend draws dinosaurs. So just really, really just finding that creativity piece because it may be hard for your child to independently just think like, oh, well, we can, like I said, like draw cars, or they like making jewelry, so we can make friendship bracelets. So trying to navigate that with them and finding different ways that they can still express their interests. But again, keep it balanced for their other friend. But again, they're not losing their sense of identity.
Right. Yes.
Their passions, they're still able to express them.
Yeah. That's so good. Yeah. I hope that that's something that everybody can hear. Just as that's the biggest takeaway is how can we just build on those strengths and not shut them down and not, minimize them, because that's important to them. And it may be difficult for them to understand the cues of when to stop talking about it, but finding a way that they can still be engaged in the thing that they love while relating to somebody else. I think that's huge. that was the biggest thing that I remember when we chatted before, like hearing the way that you framed that. I think that's so helpful. That's so helpful to hear that that's the direction that this world is going in when we're working with people in that community. So I love that. Okay. Well, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you think is important that we didn't get to cover?
No. Okay. I think, all the questions were wonderful. And I get so excited talking about it. So thanks for helping redirect me in areas.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you talk about it, you can tell like you love what you do. You're passionate. You want to make sure that people feel advocated for and feel supported and cared for. And so, and that's why you are doing more school and why you have a company and all the things, because you love it so much, and you can tell the way that you talk about it with so much enthusiasm. I love that.
Awesome. Yes, absolutely love it.
Okay, Amber, well, tell us, what are you doing to take care of yourself well these days?
Yes. And I love that question. I love being outside. So I love hiking. In Maryland, I moved from Maryland and I hiked all the time. So I try to find little trails around Texas, listening to Taylor Swift music.
Yes, of course.
It's great. And then like exercise wise, finding what worked for me was the best. And I love Hot Works. It's like this, you work out in a sauna, and like sometimes I'll be able to tell, even if I already did a walk or a run that day, realizing like I just need to like go sit in a sauna and ride a bike. So, for me, I think exercise just in any form really helps me to think through things and pull me away from my phone. That can be the biggest, just always wanting to work on things. So
yeah, that's awesome. What would you say, like when you think about taking care of your friendship well with your best friend, like what is something that you've noticed helps you to take care of that friendship well?
So that's a great question. I'm a big visual reminder person. And so some of my friends do a way better job at just checking in than I do, especially since moving from Maryland. Most of my friends now are still in Maryland. And so I will sometimes, it kind of sounds, but I heard someone at a conference say this recently, what he did is on Thursdays, he would just pick a few friends to reach out and just say, hey, I just want to let you know, like you mean a lot to me in my life. And I just want to check in how you're doing. So kind of I'll set little visual reminders for me, especially if I've noticed, because I have so many moments where I'll realize I didn't talk to my friend Bree recently, or I haven't reached out to my other friend Delaney or something like that. And so I'll kind of write a little note and I'll just say like just their name. And so then if I'm here at my desk or on my phone, I'll have it in my notes apps, which I always use. So just I kind of need visual reminders. Just to send those visual or send text, just let them know, hey, I'm thinking of you. I hope you're doing well. I'm checking up on anything.
Yeah, no, that's good. I love that. Well, and because it's just something so simple, and just because you have to remind yourself doesn't mean that they're not important to you. It's just you need reminding. I do the same thing.
Exactly. Most frequently, like, while I'm driving, I'll just be thinking about all these people and then just trying to remember. And so maybe I'm driving to somewhere where I won't have time, but I do have to at least write their name down. So it's like, okay, I thought about them. I just need to make sure that's my message.
That I tell them that I was thinking about them. Yeah. Good. All right, Amber. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all of your wisdom. I'm so excited that I know you. I'm so excited that I have this resource now that in this world of people, because I think it is a hard profession. It's a hard place to sort of kind of devote your life to. I think it can be, but hearing you talk about it and the passion that you have for it is exciting. So I'm excited that I get to sort of have you in my circle of people to send people to, because I think you're going to be a great resource for families in the area. So thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you so much to you, and same as well. I just love your passion for reaching out to different providers and doing these different series to just help everyone, and your passion to help just different populations in different areas. So I completely feel that the same way. So thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
Amber's passion for her work is infectious, right? So wherever you fall in relation to this community, whether you are neurodivergent yourself, you're a parent of someone that is, or you want to be or already are a good friend to someone that is neurodivergent, Amber encouraged us in various ways on how we can shift our focus to the strengths of individuals and also how to find common links in order to build a relationship. Something that we could all be missing is a connection that is very special and genuine if we look past these opportunities. And I have to mention the Telepathy Tapes podcast. So at the time of this recording, I hadn't started to listen to it, but let me tell you, since I recorded this conversation with Amber, I took a deep dive into this mind-blowing podcast. I highly recommend. I will include the link in the show notes. Y'all have got to check it out. And it is such a nice pairing with this conversation with Amber. So head over to the show notes where you can find the link to that podcast, Amber's website, and also a link to her Instagram at Shine Behavior Consulting. So be sure to follow her there. She is doing amazing work for those in the neurodiverse community and their families, offering help where there are so many gaps in care. So this is another opportunity for all of us to take care of those around us well. The information included in this podcast does not replace that of your own professional therapy. If you believe you are in need of professional assistance, please reach out to the medical community in your area. The Couch Next Door with Candace Frazier was created by me, Candace Frazier, graphics by Jason Frazier, music by Josh Bissell. You can find the show notes and affiliate links on CandaceFrazierLPC.com. Click on the tab podcast and you'll find all podcast related content there. I'd love to connect with you on Instagram. Find me at Candace Frazier LPC. Give the show a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. This really helps get the show to more listeners in the world, and I would be so grateful to see what you all are loving. Until next time, show kindness to yourself and those around you.